You are scrolling. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. It does not matter which one. You see a friend in Paris. Another one just bought a house. Another one got married. Another one is traveling the world. Another one got a promotion. And then you look at yourself. You are sitting on your couch, in your sweatpants, eating instant noodles. At 2 p.m., you tell yourself you are happy for them. You really are. But somewhere deep down, you feel a knot in your stomach, a familiar pang, a whisper that says, you are behind. You close the app. You open it again. You close it. You open it. You are doing this to yourself, and you hate it. Why can't you stop? Why do you compare your everyday life to everyone else's highlight reel? You think you are weak. You think you are jealous. You think you are a bad person. But the real answer is far stranger. You are not broken. You are not jealous. You are not inadequate. You are a prehistoric hunter-gatherer living in a digital world with a brain built for a tribe of 50 people staring at a global feed of 8 billion highlights. And that is why you feel like you are losing. Part 2. The Prehistoric Brain. Designed for 50. Let us go back, way back. 50,000 years ago, the Ice Age. You are a hunter-gatherer living in a small group of about 50 people. 50. That is your entire world. In that world, knowing your position in the group is not just important, it is survival. If you are a good hunter, you eat. If you are not, you go hungry. If you are respected, people share food with you. If you are not, you are left behind. If you are valued, you find a mate. If you are not, your genes die with you. Your brain developed a simple but powerful mechanism: constant social comparison. Every single day, you scan the tribe. Who hunted well today? Who found water? Who made a good tool? Who is respected? Who is falling behind? This is not jealousy. This is not envy. This is information gathering. Your brain is collecting data about where you stand, because knowing your position means knowing your chances of survival. The man who caught a deer today is ahead. You are behind. That is useful information. It tells you, work harder tomorrow, hunt longer, be better. This system kept your ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years. But here is the problem. You are no longer in a tribe of 50 people. You are in a tribe of 8 billion. And your brain does not know the difference. Part 3. Ancient Egypt, the wealth comparison. Now, let us travel to another world. Ancient Egypt, 4,500 years ago. A civilization obsessed with status, wealth, and position. In Egypt, your social rank was written on your tomb, literally. The size of your tomb, the richness of your burial goods, the number of statues of you, all of it was a permanent record of who you were. If you were a pharaoh, your tomb was a pyramid, a mountain of stone, visible for miles. The Great Pyramid of Giza is 481 feet tall. It contains 2.3 million stone blocks. Each block weighs between 2.5 and 15 tons. If you were a noble, your tomb was a smaller structure. Still impressive, but smaller. If you were a commoner, you were buried in the sand with a few pots. The Egyptians were comparing themselves constantly. They built bigger tombs to outdo their neighbors. They collected more gold to prove their worth. They inscribed their accomplishments on walls, so everyone, including the gods, would know how important they were. But here is what is fascinating. The Egyptian word for status was heka, which also meant magic. To them, status was not just social position. It was power over reality itself. They believed that your status determined your fate in the afterlife. A pharaoh became a god. A commoner became nothing. Sound familiar? You are doing the same thing today. You post a photo to show you are traveling. You buy a nicer car to show you are successful. You mention your job title in conversations to establish your rank. This is not modern vanity. This is Egyptian status-seeking repackaged for the digital age. And here is the thing the Egyptians were also comparing themselves to: people they would never meet. They knew about other kingdoms: Nubia, Mesopotamia, the Hittites, they compared themselves to them. They wanted to be better. They wanted to be remembered. You are not the first person to feel small compared to someone else's success. You are just the first person to do it while sitting on your couch. Part 4. Ancient Greece, the glory comparison. Now, let us travel to another world. Ancient Greece, 2,500 years ago. A civilization obsessed with one thing above all others: glory. The Greek word is kleos. It means fame, honor, reputation, the things that make you remembered after you die. For the Greeks, life without glory was not worth living. Heroes fought battles not just to win, but to be celebrated in songs and stories for generations. Achilles was told he could live a long, peaceful life and be forgotten. Or he could go to Troy, die young, and be remembered forever. He chose death because glory was worth more than life. The Greeks compared themselves constantly. Who was the best warrior, the best poet, the best athlete? The Olympic Games were invented to settle these comparisons, to give men a chance to prove their worth in front of the entire Greek world. But here is the dark side. The Greeks also compared themselves to the gods, and that was dangerous. In Greek mythology, hubris, excessive pride, was the greatest sin. If you thought you were too good if you dared to compare yourself to the gods, they would strike you down. That is why the Greeks feared success almost as much as failure. And you do the same thing. You achieve something great. You get a promotion. You win an award. You create something beautiful. But instead of celebrating, you feel anxiety. You worry people will think you are arrogant. You downplay your achievements. You say, "It was nothing," when you know it was not nothing. This is the Greek fear of hubris living in your brain 2,500 years later. You are not humble because you are modest. You are humble because your ancestors learned that standing out too much got you killed. And here is the irony. The Greeks also compared themselves to each other in ways that mirror social media today. They held festivals where poets competed. They held plays where playwrights competed. They held athletic games where athletes competed. They were constantly comparing their achievements to others, just like you scrolling through LinkedIn. Part 5. The Vikings, the honor comparison. Now, let us travel to the world you already know. The Vikings, 1,200 years ago. A world where honor was everything. In Viking society, your reputation was your currency. If you had honor, people respected you. They traded with you. They married their daughters to you. They followed you into battle. If you lost your honor, you lost everything. The Vikings had a word for it: neath. It meant shame, dishonor, disgrace. Being called neithinger, a person without honor, was the worst insult imaginable. Worse than being called a coward. Worse than being called a murderer. Worse than being called anything. And here is the most fascinating part. The Vikings compared themselves to their ancestors. They wanted to be remembered. They wanted their names to live on after they died. That is why they carved rune stones. Huge stones covered in writing and pictures telling the story of their lives. Here stands this stone in memory of who was a great warrior, a skilled trader, a loyal friend. They wanted to be compared favorably to those who came before. They wanted future generations to say, "He was one of the great ones." Sound familiar? You post on Instagram, you tweet, you make videos. You want to be remembered. You want to leave a mark. You are carving your own runestone. You are building your own legacy. You are not vain. You are Viking. But here is the problem. The Vikings compared themselves to their local community, a few villages, a few hundred people. They could realistically compete with that. You are comparing yourself to the entire world. You are trying to leave a mark on a planet of 8 billion people, and that is why you feel invisible. Part 6. The counterintuitive twist. Now, let us put all of this together. Your brain was built to compare yourself to 50 people. Not 500, not 5,000, not 5 million. 50. Your prehistoric brain can track the status of 50 people. It knows who is ahead and who is behind. It knows where you stand. It knows what to do to improve your position. But today, you are not comparing yourself to 50 people. You are comparing yourself to the entire world. Every influencer, every celebrity, every successful person you have ever heard of, every friend from high school, every colleague from a previous job, every person you met once at a party. Your brain did not evolve for this. It is drowning in data. And here is the twisted irony. You are not even competing with real people. You are competing with carefully curated highlights, the best moments, the most flattering angles, the biggest achievements, the happiest days. You are comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. The prehistoric hunter-gatherer could look at his neighbor and know, he caught a deer today. I caught a rabbit. I need to hunt harder tomorrow. You look at your screen and think, she is traveling the world. I am sitting on my couch. I am a failure. But here is the truth you need to hear. That person traveling the world, they have debt, they have anxiety, they have bad days, they have fights with their partner, they have moments of doubt. You just do not see that part because they are not posting it. So here is the real twist. You are not losing a competition. You are not even in a competition. You are just watching someone else's highlight reel and judging your entire life by it. That is not a fair comparison, and your brain was never designed for it. You are not a failure. You are a prehistoric brain in a digital world, and you are doing the best you can. Part 7. The Modern Reflection. Now, let us bring this back to your life. You are not weak. You are not jealous. You are not broken. You are a member of a species that survived by paying attention to social status. That is not a flaw. That is a superpower. But your superpower is working in an environment that is overwhelming it. So what do? First, recognize the mismatch. Your brain was not designed for infinite comparisons. That is why you feel exhausted. That is why you feel inadequate. That is why you cannot stop. Second, limit your comparisons. You do not need to compare yourself to everyone. You only need to compare yourself to yourself. Are you better than you were yesterday? Last month? Last year? That is the only comparison that matters. Third, remember your ancestors. They survived because they paid attention to where they stood. But they also survived because they worked together. They shared food. They protected each other. They built communities. You are not alone. You were never meant to be. Fourth, stop watching other people's highlight reels. The person you are comparing yourself to is also comparing themselves to someone else. It is comparisons all the way down. Fifth, create something. Instead of consuming other people's lives, build your own. Make art, write something, go outside, start a project. Your ancestors did not sit around comparing themselves to others. They were too busy surviving. And you can do the same. Part 8. The Closing Loop. So the next time you find yourself scrolling, feeling small and inadequate, remember this. A hunter-gatherer 50,000 years ago looked at his neighbor and felt the same pang of comparison. An Egyptian noble looked at a pyramid and wondered if his own tomb would ever be as grand. A Greek hero worried if his name would be sung after his death. A Viking carved a runestone hoping future generations would remember it. You are not the first person to feel this way. You will not be the last. And you are not weak for feeling it. You are human. But here is what separates you from them. They had to compare themselves to a few hundred people. You are comparing yourself to 8 billion. And yet, you are still here, still surviving, still trying. That is not weakness. That is strength. What if you stopped comparing yourself to strangers on the internet and started comparing yourself to who you were yesterday? What would change?